Well, I think we're going to talk about a phase of the economy that always seems to come around when the economy goes bad. Everybody goes back to school, and
Except
we go
us.
to. Well, we've
been schooled.
We've been well. We obviously see the benefits, like lasers, the benefits of higher education. And they are marginal in my estimation.
Well, critical thinking skills are very valuable if there is a market for them. The problem is,
what are you going to do with your job?
Yeah.
Culinary art school, that always, there was a gap there in the mid, the 2000s and the 90s where you probably could, as we are all these real estate people rolling in all that money, going to all these...
Oh, yeah, all those mortgage brokers,
yeah,
bankers.
Yeah, the horse business was good.
Everything was good.
Restaurant business was good.
And they were going out for their vichyssoise and things.
And we know people in this town that make quite a bit of money on these kinds of ITT...
We're talking about trade schools.
Trade schools.
For-profit trade schools, to be exact.
Well, and I think some of this for-profit trade schools carries over. Some of these issues that they talk about in these for-profit trade schools should carry over to even our other higher education. In other words...
Absolutely. Are we getting the value back for our investment?
Yes. Or is the trade school selling something that you could not get a return on that investment once you come out of college?
You mean the old bait and switch?
Well, even the Obama administration is saying, we can't put all this Pell Grant money.
There's tax dollars involved.
Well,
lots of tax dollars involved.
Higher education is rife. Education in general is rife with tax dollars.
Oh, but we shouldn't have to guarantee anybody an education.
It's free market.
Free market.
Free market.
Don't need smart people out there,
That's
do
right.
we?
Appalachian. Being born and reared in Appalachian is a free market extravaganza in what you'll get.
You don't need a whole lot of education to make babies, do you?
No. Doing what comes naturally.
Yes, so the trade schools are being questioned about value. And they talk about schools like ITT, Rex Tech Center, Miami Jacobs, some of the ones around here locally. There's a Dayton School of Medical Massage, as if, there's a huge market for massages around here.
Under a proposal, programs would be barred from loading students with more debt than justified by the likely salaries of jobs they would pursue.
Uh-oh.
And that has been my question, even with higher education. You get a Bachelor of Fine Arts or take a geology degree. I mean, very rarely you get your money back in that particular field.
But you're educated now. You have a diploma, and that makes it all so much better. We actually measure communities by how many diplomas they have.
And I'm not so sure that's the right way to do things. Now, if you looked at last week's New York Times magazine,
yes,
they had an article about how to make good teachers. What it takes to be a really good teacher. So my contention is we spend tax dollars poorly at higher education. We also spend it poorly at K-12 by not getting the most out of that brain power that's sitting there in the classroom.
True.
Nor, if you ever come down here, you could get an education in marketing, education in how computers work, education in...
Absolutely.
Would that be better than...
On-job training?
On-job training. In other words, should you really get tax credits for taking on journeyman people?
Well, we used to have trade schools that were run by unions, believe it or not.
Don't say that word.
And they actually were quite effective.
They were quite effective.
Teaching people how to build buildings and build roads and all kinds of things. And those have gone sort of by the wayside as well.
Well, that article last week talked about, even when you're pursuing an education degree, they teach you kind of esoterically how to be an educator, but they don't show you what it's like to actually teach in a class.
Absolutely.
So it's all about,
But we've seen tuitions go up across the board exponentially. I mean,
I would hate to be going to a school right now and with graduating with that debt load.
That's one of the reasons Sinclair was one of our huge economic engines in this community. You know, it was great because for relatively used to be a very small amount of money, you could get through a 2-year degree and have a job and profession. But now they're raising tuition.
Well, you've got a lot of grand old party overhead, you know, as they lost their elections. You had to fund them somewhere, and the Sinclair is the grand old party junk. Everything that retired from the...
Oh, let me see. No, I don't want to name names.
Well, it's easy to figure out. Dumb and Dumber gets hired down there. So
no, this look at where our tax dollars are going is really, all of a sudden now that
you have to get a return on your investment.
Now that times are tight, we're starting to look a little more closely. So, I'm wondering when we're going to start looking at things like our return on investment on our global and military industrial machine.
Wow, that's
a whole other discussion. But we'll link to this article in the New York Times. We hope you take a look at it. And
think about what you're going to do for your children. Think about what the jobs are in the future. And think about that really we should enforce K through 12 to being as arduous and as rigorous as possible, because that may be the best investment we get, and students can go out and learn on the job.
Wow.
Have a wonderful day.